before we start the video, I'd like to ask you guys to please consider subscribing to the channel and liking the video, as it helps the channel grow. So, let's get into it. Welcome back to the channel, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for taking a little bit of time to spend a little time with me, your boy KT. As you guys know, the 2025 NFL draft has come to a close, and it was a very interesting draft with a lot of polarizing opinions, picks, and, interesting out of the draft situations that I won't go into this video. But none was more interesting, in my opinion, than the Chicago Bears draft this year. They made a lot of polarizing picks throughout all the rounds in this draft. And, some good players, some good, some bad, maybe some that you're maybe not be sure about. But overall, they had a pretty unique draft, and they filled a lot of needs in this draft as well. So I figured, why not get on here, talk about some of the selections that they made, give an overall grade for the draft that they had, and give my overall thoughts on some of the players that they picked. So without further ado, guys, let's get straight into it. So round one, pick number 10, the Chicago Bears selected Colston Loveland, tight end out of Michigan. And I'm not going to go too in depth with this pick because I've already done a video about this pick just a few days ago. Click the link in the top right to go watch that video. But overall, what you're getting with Colston Loveland out of Michigan is you're getting a 6'6" tight end who's 248 pounds, who runs like he's 6'3", 225 pounds. This guy is a nasty. I cannot, specify this enough. If you were one of those people who did not like this pick at 10, and you did not, you wanted Tyler Warren or you wanted to trade down, just go watch the film of this guy, go watch the highlights of this guy, and tell me what you see. This guy is a nasty route runner. Can run routes in all three levels: short, intermediate, deep. Can run drags, crosses, stick and go, all double moves. Can get past linebackers with ease, has that big frame. He played basketball as well, so he knows how to box out tinier defenders to be able to go high point the football and make difficult catches. This guy, when you look at the film and you look at what people were saying about him, and you look at the national media, what they were saying about him, this actually seems like a good pick on paper. And this guy, you just look at his film, man. This guy was a first team All Big Ten Conference in 2023. He was a second team All Big Ten Conference player in 2024. He was the finalist for the John Mackey Award, and he was the second best tight end in, coming into the draft. If you listen to some other people, depending on who you ask, he might have been the best tight end coming into the draft, because his route running is so far ahead of almost every other tight end in the draft, only maybe being challenged by Tyler Warren from Penn State. Now, if you ask me, this was not the sexy pick at 10. This was not the Ashton Genty. This was not the Will Campbell. They did not trade down. But when you look at the film and you look at the highlights and you correlate that to what Ben Johnson wants to do, he is compared to Sam Laporta, and he is expected, he could be a future Pro Bowler. This is a guy who likes to run a lot of routes, who likes to get his tight ends involved. And, when you draft a guy like Colston Loveland and you add him with a guy like Cole Kmet, the opposite of Cole Kmet, where while Kmet is more, a physical, not the best route runner, but is a hellacious blocker and is able to be physical at the point of attack. You get this guy who's more of a finesse tight end, who's able to get into the second level of defenses and cause mismatch problems. He can also play in the damn slot, so that's a big plus. You look at that and you see why they drafted him. This could be a dangerous tight end room going into the season, as I think Ben Johnson will be able to get something out of Colston Loveland. And look out, Bears fans, this guy could definitely develop into one of the better tight ends of this draft. While it may not be the sexy pick and may not be the pick everybody wanted, I can understand it. I'm going to give it a solid B, as I like the pick. I'm starting to look at more film about this guy, and I'm starting to see the national consensus about this guy. And oh yeah, I'm excited about this guy. So I'm going to give it a B, solid B. Not the best pick, but not the worst pick ever. So yeah. So in round 2, the Bears made another unexpected pick in round 2. They had the 7th pick in round 2, and they ended up picking Luther Burden III from Missouri. And this was a pick that was completely out of left field, and this pick might have been a steal. Now, while Colson Loveland is a good player in my opinion, and was a good pick for just the scheme itself, this guy is probably my favorite pick in the entire draft. Luther Burden III came into this season, to the college football season this year, as the #1 ranked receiver. Now, the 6'0", the 6 feet, 206-pound receiver from Missouri had a tougher year in the college football season playing at Missouri in his junior year. But you look at that Missouri team and you look at that quarterback play, and you tell me how much production are you going to get from him. And even with having a down year last year, this guy still came into the draft this year as a #2 ranked wide receiver next to Travis Hunter. Now, I think Tetairoa McMillan is better than Luther Burden. If you want to argue, maybe Marcus Golden or could be a little bit better as well, or whatever his name is, who went to the Green Bay Packers. But Luther Burden is up there, and he was expected to be a first-round pick this year. The Bears end up getting him in the second round, and this is a guy who's electric with the ball in his hand. While he's not a guy like a Justin Jefferson who's going to run routes at all three levels efficiently and consistently, this guy is a shifty receiver. He is a guy that you can plug and play almost anywhere. He adds a lot of depth to that receiving room with both Rome Odunze and DJ Moore going beside him. This is a guy who has pretty good speed. He has good hands. He has good body control as well. For a guy that's 6 feet, he plays a lot bigger, and he's a dog out there on that field. He's able to block at times. He runs his routes with physicality. He has good shiftiness in the open field, so he's kind of hard to tackle in the open field. And once again, when you look at the system that Ben Johnson likes to run, if you look at him like in Detroit with some of the plays that he liked to run in Detroit, this guy kind of reminds you of a guy like Jameson Williams, who is a shifty, fast receiver who can have all these packages drawn up for him and able to get the ball into his hands, who has that good deep threat ability, with his route running. While he may not be the best, intermediate to short route runner, he definitely is a deep threat that can go down the field. And when you look at that and you compare him to Luther Burden, this is basically kind of like the same thing. While shorter and maybe not as fast, this guy adds a lot of versatility to your wide receiver room. Good hands, he can play almost anywhere on the field. He has good playmaking skills and instincts. NFL.com had him ranked as the #2 receiver coming into the draft. His NFL comparison is Garrett Wilson. I don't think so. I compare him to a guy, like a Deebo Samuel or like a Jameson Williams, as they did play together in high school. But you look at him and you wonder how he was able to drop to the Chicago Bears in the second round. He has some weaknesses. He could be inconsistent with his routes. Some drops when traffic is near him, so he may not be the best contested catch receiver. But when you have a guy like Rome Odunze who can make those contested catches, along with DJ Moore, who's average at contested catches, you're definitely going to. That's definitely a good complementary piece to Burden, coming in, learning from those guys, and adding another weapon for Caleb Williams, especially a guy like Luther Burden who can get the ball in his hands and make plays happen. You turn on the film and he's able to make guys miss. He's able to get into open space and find that open space and take advantage of it. While he's not the top receiver in the draft, he definitely is a receiver that I thought would have went earlier. And this is a good pick for the Chicago Bears. They nailed it with this pick. They addressed the issue of depth. So if a guy goes down, he can step in when he's ready and fill that void if needed. I like this pick. I'm going to give it an A. Getting a guy like Luther Burden in the second round is definitely a steal in my opinion. This guy has a lot of natural talent to him. May not be the biggest receiver, but definitely has a lot of dog to him. I'm excited for this guy. I'm really interested to see how they implement him into the offense, as this is a weapon for Caleb Williams in that slot that we haven't seen for him yet. So I'm excited for this pick. I'm gonna give it an A. So the Bears had another pick in the second round. They had the 24th pick in the second round. I think that was what, 78 or something? No, that was 56 in the second round. And with that 56 pick in the second round, they picked Ozzy Trapilo from Boston College, tackle from Boston College. And this was another interesting draft choice as well. The 6'8", 216-pound tackle, massive tackle from Boston College, projects to be more of a swing tackle in the NFL than anything. And this was an interesting pick. The Bears, as you know, needed offensive line help going into the season. So they addressed that in the offseason by picking up Tooney, especially interior Tooney, Dahlman, and Jonah Jackson. And most people believe that their tackles are set, with Darnell Wright going on the right side and Braxton Jones going on the left side. That being said, the Bears needed depth at offensive line badly, and I kind of think he fills this void for the Bears so far. Now, this is kind of a pick I see as kind of like a Karan Amagaji pick. Like last year, kind of more of a developmental player, but at 6'8", 216 pounds, you know, he's a massive tackle. When you look at the film about this guy and you hear people talk about him, he is a guy that can move surprisingly well for a guy that's 6'8", 316 pounds. You don't expect that from a tackle to move that fast, who can get out in space in the run game and create holes. And looking at what Ben Johnson likes to do, he likes offensive linemen to be able to, you know, swing out, to be able to pull, and to be able to move so they can set up blocks on the outside. He was ranked as the 13th ranked tackle, around 13 or 12 ranked tackle in the entire draft. Has a lot of good traits, man. I think as we, you know, have this guy, he played at right tackle, but he can play at left tackle. He was a first team all ACC, and he started 12 games for him. When you look at him, he has good active hands. You know, he has good feet at times, especially in the run game. When you look at the film, I'm not really reading what the analysts are saying with their, you know, with their descriptions or their, you know, draft documentation. When you look at the film, he's able to move pretty good. I think, though, he's definitely going to need time to develop, but this is a pick that can definitely either push Braxton Jones to, you know, show some things this year if he can be the future left tackle. My best case scenario is they're going to let Ozzy develop at left tackle, as I don't feel like you should be able to move Darnell Wright over to left tackle and then put this guy at right tackle. I feel that he should develop as a left tackle. You know, because with Braxton Jones' health issues and, you know, him not being able to show consistently that he can be the franchise left tackle, this is a guy who has the talent to be that. Is definitely going to need a little bit more seasoning, can definitely move a little bit better with his feet. You know, he kind of uses more reach and feel type of, you know, technique than kind of like a forceful type technique, especially in pass pro. But he has some good talent. He's able to create space in the run game. He's able to move a little bit in the run game. If he's able to develop, and with his natural gifts, I think he could become a starter in the NFL, especially if Braxton Jones gets hurt or is not the franchise left tackle. While Ozzy may not be a franchise left tackle, in my opinion, he definitely will be a solid tackle if he's developed correctly. And so going into the season, I think developing him at left tackle, giving him a little bit of time to sit and watch, and getting in there with Dan Ruchar should, you know, pay dividends for him in the future. Overall, I'm going to give this pick a C+. As you know, third round picks don't really get, you know, a lot of, you know, I mean round 2 picks, you know, while they did not get the tackles that they desired in the first round, or maybe even in the second round, this guy wasn't highly thought of as a starting tackle in the second round. But he definitely has a lot of talent going into this team. This could honestly be bumped up to a B-. But, you know, the Bears had a lot of other needs too. They had running back on their list of needs. They also had edge, and I think there were a lot of edges there that they could have taken with that spot. But I will say, with Ozzy Trapilo, he has a lot of talent. I'm going to bump this up to a B-, as I think that with his natural gifts and his natural size, if he's developed correctly, he could become a part of that starting offensive line, or at least rotate in at times if needed. So yeah, definitely a pick that was needed for the Chicago Bears. They needed depth, they needed somebody talented, and they needed somebody to push Braxton Jones a little bit more if Karan Amagaji isn't going to be that guy. I like the pick. While it's not the sexy pick, I think it averages out as a B-. So the Bears' next pick would be in round 2 would be number 62, and with the number 62 pick in the second round, the Bears selected Shamar Turner, DT out of Texas A&M. This was yet again another interesting pick that the Bears made. Now, most people think that this was a reach. He's 6'3", 290 pounds, from Texas A&M, and with this pick, while I don't think it was a bad pick by any means, I do think that with the needs again at running back and at edge, kind of offset this a little bit more, or kind of add a little bit more context to the situation. I don't know if going DT, another developmental DT, would have been the best decision. That being said, Shamar Turner has some talent in his game. You look at the film, he's definitely a tweener type player. As I say this, he is kind of like a guy who can play all 5 positions on the offensive line. On the defensive line, he has played all 5 positions on the defensive line, including edge. So he has that versatility as a player, but he's not the best pass rusher in the world, at least not at this point in time. But you look at the film, this guy definitely has pretty good run defense. At 290, 6'3", he could honestly drop down and move to edge, or he could get a little bit heavier and stay at DT. And, with the issues that the Bears had at defensive tackle last year, especially once Andrew Billings went down, then Gervon Dexter went down, and they were in and out the lineup. I think the Bears were really prioritizing getting guys who can kind of stuff up that middle, especially if Billings cannot, fully recover from a pectoral injury, because those injuries are kind of tricky to deal with. This guy was ranked as a 10th ranked DT in a class where DTs were flying off the boards in the first and second round. So especially in the later rounds, they were flying off the boards. While this guy is not going to give you much in the pass rush game, I do think he does offer a little bit in the run defense category. He's relentless, so he has a high motor. He gets off the snap pretty quickly as well. Kind of smallish at 6'3". But with the Bears prioritizing, they went out and signed Grady Jarrett. They're getting Andrew Billings back. They'll still have, Gervon Dexter. Now you add a guy like Shamar Turner, and of course the Bears went out and signed Dio. I think you say his name, Obenweno or something like that, who can also play DT at times. I think you have something there in the middle, where this guy can kind of sit, develop, work on his pass rush game, and if he needs to step in, he can be a rotational piece who can definitely play the run pretty effectively. He is kind of smallish, so I wonder about how he's going to be dealing with some of those bigger guards in the NFL. But NFL.com has him ranked as eventually will be a plus starter. While not the best DT pick in the world, I don't think it was a bad pick. I do think that edge was a more pressing need than a DT, as you just went out and signed Grady Jarrett. But considering the issues that we had at DT last year, I'm not mad about it. Again, I'm going to give this a C+. Not the best pick in the world, but again, a guy who adds a lot of versatility on the defensive line, a guy who can move around. He seems like a Dennis Allen type guy, and a guy who adds some more run defense is always going to be accepted here, as the Bears struggled with the run game last year. So yeah, I think this is a C+ pick. He won't add too much in the pass rush game, but he is a developmental piece that can, step in if needed, and it's definitely better than the option that they did have in Zach Pickens. So pretty good pick for the Chicago Bears. And now we move on to the first round in day 4, which is round 4. And in round 4, the Bears had 132 as their pick. Of course, the Bears traded back a lot in these later rounds, especially on day 3, and they ended up picking up Ruben Hippolyte, the second linebacker from Maryland. Now, this might be the first pick that I am not the biggest fan of. Again, Ruben Hippolyte, 5'11", 236 pounds, from Fort Lauderdale, Florida. He played at Maryland. This is a guy who wasn't even expected to be drafted at the time, and this seems like a reach to me. Now, again, we let Jack Sanborn go this previous offseason. He went to the Cowboys, so maybe this is a pick where you say, okay, we need somebody to replace him, and we need somebody to play that role on special teams, as well as Jack Sanborn wasn't playing all that much to begin with here. But at the same time, this guy wasn't really expected to be drafted. He was ranked 300 out of linebackers, and look at him. He's could amount to nothing more than maybe a backup or a special teamer. And around where I thought they were gonna pick a running back in that round, or maybe go with an edge in that round, even though the edges were flying off the shelf. This seems like a pick where it's more of you're going based off of just, hey, we're missing Jack Sanborn. This guy runs pretty fast, so he kind of shot up the rankings a little bit more because he is able to run fast, and he is 236 pounds. But he's an off-ball linebacker, and with picking him at round 4, when he was expected to even go undrafted. If not, he was probably going to be a round 5 or 6 pick. This kind of feels like a reach to me, and I feel like they had more pressing needs than linebacker. At the same time, TJ Edwards and Tremaine Edmonds are getting a little bit older, especially with Edwards getting a contract extension. You don't know how much longer those guys have to play, and losing Jack Sanborn kind of hurts the team a little bit at the depth of linebacker. If this guy can even step in and be a good special teamer, I guess it would be a good pick. But this is kind of puzzling for me, so I'm going to go with a D. I'm going to go with just a solid D for this pick. It's not the worst pick in the world. It's a 4th round pick, and you're not really going to find many players in the 4th round who are going to come in and make an immediate impact. That being said, that pick could have been used for more pressing needs like running back or like edge, especially edge. I feel like this pick could have been used to select an edge, as you need depth in that position as well. But yeah, Ruben Hippolyte Jr. Or the second is definitely not one of my favorite picks of this draft. Definitely feels like a reach in my opinion. Kind of feels like they drafted for metrics and potential rather than just picking somebody who can play. Good instincts, but just might not amount to more than a special teamer. So this pick will get a solid D for me. Now, the next pick that the Bears made is definitely another very interesting pick. Now, they did trade back in round 5 as well. This was their second day 3 pick, and with that 169 pick that they got from the Rams or the Bills, I can't remember, they went ahead and picked cornerback Za Frazier from UTSA. And right off the bat, I actually like this pick in the 5th round. The 6'3", 186-pound corner from Cedartown, Georgia, played at Texas San Antonio last year, and immediately, as you look at what he does best, while he did not have a lot of experience in college, as he did not play that many snaps in college, this guy is definitely a talented corner. He has good ball skills, and the main thing is he's 6'3", 186 pounds, but he ran a 4.3 in the combine. This pick to me screams depth, and this pick to me screams competition, because Ben Johnson said it best yesterday, I think. He said that we came in, we let guys know that nothing is given on this team. There's no depth charts. If you want to play, you have to earn it. And with a guy like Dennis Allen, who's a no-nonsense type defensive coach out there, Za Frazier feels like the perfect pick to not only push Terrell Smith with that depth piece, of course being the backup to Tyreek Stevenson as well. This feels like a pick to push him as well to get his act together. While Tyreek Stevenson is not a bad corner, he had moments last year where you're just wondering what is he doing. especially in that game in Washington. That kind of ticked guys off the wrong way what he did last year. Now, Josh Frazier, first team All-American Athletic Conference. He was tied for second in the FBS with a school record of 6 INTs. He led the team in 9 pass breakups, and he played in 12 games with 10 starts. You look at him, good ball skills, good instincts as a player, as a corner, and you always like that, a guy who can stay near the ball. Some issues about this pick is he is 25 years old. He's going to be turning 25 in October, and he only started 1 season at UTSA. He's kind of more like a man coverage corner, or because I think if you're going to put him on double moves, of course, guys who are fast and long are gonna be a little bit more instinctual, and double moves might give him an issue. That, and being older, being a guy who only started 1 year in college is definitely not ideal either. But when you look at the metrics about this guy, when you look at the athletic score for this guy, you have a guy that runs a 4.3, is 6'3", and is able to track the ball pretty well with good instincts. I definitely think this would be a pick for depth in a guy who can push guys like Terrell Smith and even Tyreek Stevenson to become a developmental player. He could be a good backup, or he even has the potential to develop into a starter. But this pick definitely screams to me, hey, we got guys there as backups, but we need more, because we know this cornerback room does have the tendency to stay hurt a little bit. And with this guy's length, his speed, he could definitely add a bit of a dynamic to the Bears defense, especially with their depth. I'm always all for depth when it comes to drafting, and he definitely feels like a guy, if developed correctly, could become a solid backup in the league, and can definitely push a guy like Terrell Smith and Tyreek Stevenson to get their acts together and develop their own games more. So while I like the pick, I'm going to give it a C. Again, not a starting type caliber player, 25 years old, but when you got those metrics, 6'3", 186 pounds, and who can run a 4.3 and has good instincts to be able to track the ball in the air and make plays on the ball. Always great to have corners like that who can do that. Kind of reminds me of Reedy Stewart a little bit last year. I don't think Reedy made the team, but definitely reminds me of that guy last year. A guy with good ball skills, but a guy who definitely won't average to more than a backup in the league. So I like it. I like depth. I like guys who are able to push other guys on the roster to become better. And at 6'3", 186 pounds, who runs a 4.3 speed, you can't get much better than that. So yeah, I'm going to give this a solid C. So in round 6, the Bears had 1 pick in round 6 as well. At 195, the Chicago Bears selected Luke Newman, offensive guard from Michigan State. Again, right off the bat, you could tell that this was a depth piece that the Bears needed to make. Guard, 6'3", 312 pounds, played at Michigan State, started every game in the last 4 seasons for Michigan State. I think he transferred from the Holy Cross to Michigan State this past season, but he started almost every game for them. He's a guard, listed as a guard, but he can play almost every position on that offensive line. Is very versatile. I think he's played tackle before, but I see him as more of a developmental piece as well in the guard. As a guard, he was a second-team All-American at Holy Cross. Not a bad player at all. Durable, started every game in college. Big. It's a big guard, is 6'3", 312 pounds, can move really well. And you look at him, you look at the film, he's a zone type of guard who's able, to play, with a pull type reaction, good feet, good movement to be able to create holes in the run game. That being said, he shouldn't amount to more than just a solid backup, and honestly, that's what you need. You got older guys, and guys like Jonah Jackson tend to get hurt at times for this offensive line, so having a guy that can step in and maybe just play a little bit above average, maybe or just average enough to be able to fill in with guys like Tooney and Dahlman next to him. That's a guy who he can learn from. He's, like I said, started every game in the last 4 seasons. He has good awareness in threats and protection. Had a really, really good game against Michigan this past season, in which he was able to not only cut off Kenneth Grant, but also cut off Mason Graham as well. And if you watched that Michigan team last year, you know they had one of the best interior off defensive lines in college football. And I'm not going to lie, he had a good game against them. Again, he's kind of impatient in pass protection, which causes him to reach. Not the best foot speed. While he can play tackle, he definitely projects more as a guard. This guy kind of projects to nothing more than a good depth piece, maybe a practice squad player. But when you have holes on the offensive line like that, he's talented. There's something there that they can unlock to where he can become a solid backup. And it's always nice to have depth at those positions. So I'm not going to give this any more than a C either, as round 6 picks rarely make an impact in the NFL and rarely become really, really good starters. I'm not saying it can't happen, but this guy definitely projects to be more of a backup type piece. But he has some good traits that you may like for a guard who can play tackle at times. But I definitely see him as more of a guard. Had a great game against Michigan, so maybe they saw that as well. Always with guys like this, they're developmental prospects. If you can develop them correctly, they can become a very solid backup in the NFL. But I'm not going to give this pick any more than a C either. And finally, in round 7, this was the just stop whining about it type pick. With pick number 233 in the 7th round, the Chicago Bears selected Kyle Monangai, running back out of Rutgers. Now, this was not the running back that most people had them taken in the draft. A lot of people had them taking a running back much earlier. That did not happen. So Ryan Poles basically made the decision to pick a running back in the 7th round and Kyle Monangai, basically telling the fans, here, shut up, I drafted a running back, here you go. 5'8", 211 pounds from Rutgers. This is a back that I'm also pretty interested in as well. While just being a 7th rounder, and with 7th rounders, they really don't turn into anything other than average backups or maybe even special teamers. But this guy, it's interesting with this guy. I've seen, some film about this guy. I've seen him actually play before too. And this guy has some type of talent, man. He was a 2nd team All Big Ten Conference in 2023. He had 1,000 rushing yards, 1,200 rushing yards in 2023. Followed that up the last year, that next year in 2024, becoming a 1st team All Big Ten Conference, and had around the same amount of rushing yards last year that he had in 2023. 1,200 rushing yards, 13 rush TDs. He started 11 games. He did not play in the team's bowl game, but he was the team captain. And this is very interesting. As a running back, he has no fumbles in his college career. None. No fumbles. He was a 3-star prospect going into Rutgers. He's played 5 years in college. When he got to Rutgers, he started playing predominantly in 2023 or in 2022, and showed a lot of talent for that team. And as the years went on in 2023, 2024, this was a back that kind of got swept under. Now, as we know, the running back class was exceptionally deep in this draft. He does not project more to be anything else than an average backup, but I see something with this guy. I do. He's a power back, so he is able to break tackles, which you need on this team. He does not have breakaway speed, but he's a really, really, really good pass blocker and a physical runner. He's able to, he has a low center of gravity, which allows him to stack in lateral cuts and an instinct. Good balance to where he's able to bounce off of tackles. Maybe not the most elusive guy in the world, but like I said, very, very physical running back. It's hard to tackle this guy as well. And playing in the Big Ten, that kind of earns him an extra brownie point, as playing in the Big Ten is no slouch right now. And if you're able to do that, rush for 1,000 yards again in this Big Ten, that provides some merit. And you have no fumbles on your career. And you're team captain for 2 straight years at Rutgers. While he may not be the fastest running back, he may be a little smallish. I kind of think this guy has a little bit of talent that the Bears could exploit. We know the running back room, it does have a little bit of questions to it. You know, DeAndre Swift had a good year, but you didn't really have that physical runner. Roschon Johnson, while he can be that physical runner, he kind of gets injured a lot, and you know, you can't really rely on him, and you don't really have a lot of depth at that position. I know people keep mentioning Ian Wheeler, but if you're putting all your stock into a guy that went undrafted, you will be disappointed if he comes in and doesn't perform. So adding Kyle Monangai in the second round, while maybe not, like an Ashton Genty or a Quigshawn Judkins or a Travion Henderson, this guy does have some type of talent. He provides some type of, threat in the pass game. Good physical runner, is willing to block in the backfield while not being the biggest guy. And, for a team that struggles to get blocks from backs on this team, he could add that type of, skill set to this team if he's able to make the roster. And this guy has a high work ethic, man. He's a great teammate. From everything that I've read about him, people loved him at Rutgers. He was a dog at Rutgers. Look at the highlights, man. This guy was pretty good. While I don't expect him to be anything more than an average backup, if he's a backup to DeAndre Swift, that speaks to his work ethic, his intensity, and his talent. As he is a guy who's physical, he's going to look for the holes. He's a patient runner, and when you look at the film, he adds something to the pass game. And while not being the biggest guy in the world, his heart is up there with some of the guys on that team. So look out for this guy. He may be something. He may make this team, and he may add some value. I kind of call him the Timu Genty, as he kind of plays, similar to Ashton Genty. So we'll see, man. I like Kyle Monangai. I'm honestly going to give this pick a B-, man. They needed a running back. This guy wasn't talked about a lot, but when you can do, rush for 1,000 yards, 2 straight seasons, a team captain, no fumbles in your career, I think this might be one of the steals in the draft. And I'm excited to see what he's able to do. If he makes the roster, good. If he doesn't, it doesn't really hurt you. He was a 7th round pick. So I'm going to give this pick a B-. I like this pick. Timu Genty is joining the team. Now overall, this draft for the Chicago Bears wasn't, the star-studded draft that everybody had them going with. Everybody had them getting Genty or Campbell or, Tyler Warren or Kelvin Banks. This wasn't a star-studded draft for them. At the same time, the Bears addressed a lot of needs, especially their first 2 picks in this draft. I thought they nailed them. The second day had some up and downs. The third day wasn't all that great. They got a lot of backup pieces in the third day. But at the same time, this team didn't have many holes on it. Maybe safety, maybe edge, could have been addressed in this draft. But the way the boards fell to them, the way the talent was in this draft, there wasn't a lot of top-end talent, especially in the later rounds that they could have went with. So I'm not mad with the draft for Chicago Bears. I'm not mad at who they picked. There were some picks where it left you scratching your head, especially that Ruben Hippolyte pick. But those first 2 picks in this draft were definitely better than people are giving them credit for. You add weapons for Caleb Williams. You get depth for your offensive line. You add something to that defensive line. And, you get an interesting player in round 7 who I think has a lot of talent. That all shapes up to be a pretty good draft for Chicago Bears. I'm going to give them a B+ for the entire draft. It's not, a star-studded draft for them, but they definitely addressed a lot of needs. They definitely got a lot of interesting choices to fit this team. And if these guys are developed correctly, it's not about the player you draft or the name. It's all about how you develop these players and what they turn into in the NFL. If you're able to develop these guys, all of these guys could become pretty solid players in the NFL if developed correctly. But overall, you know, that's what I think about the Bears overall draft. I think they made some good selections. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. How do you guys feel about the Chicago Bears draft this season? Do you like it? Do you not like it? But yeah, let me know in the comment section. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please consider subscribing to the channel and liking the videos. That helps the channel grow. Make sure you guys hit that notification bell so you get notified every time I drop one of these draft or NFL type videos. I'm gonna start doing these a little bit more. I have some more prospects that I want to talk about that aren't on the Chicago Bears, so be looking out for that. Make sure you guys follow me on social media, as there's bound to be discussions about the Bears and who they drafted on social media. And as always, guys, I really hope you enjoyed this video. Have a great day, and I'm out. Peace.